They said sleeping in packed snow would kill a man. Well, here I am.
William Cross stared at the smoking bones of his trapper cabin. Everything he owned had turned to ash before sunset.
No time to grieve now. The storm will be here by morning.
He grabbed a battered shovel and walked into the deepening snow. The mountain wind was already testing seams in his coat.
They told me a man suffocates in snow, can't breathe. But out here, the wind will steal your breath faster than any drift.
He drove the shovel blade into the drift and began building a mound, a frozen temple to his own stubbornness.
The old trappers laughed at snow shelters. I listened. And now look at me.
Through the afternoon, he shaped the mound, packing each load of snow until his arms burned, and the cold was a dull ache in his back. As dusk fell, the sky over the peaks turned an ugly purple. The first heavy flakes of the blizzard began to fall, erasing the world.
We'll see who's right.
Overnight, the packed snow mound sintered into a shell as hard as frozen earth. At dawn, William scraped away a low arch, revealing the hollow inside.
He placed a hand on the curve and felt the cold, solid surface. It'll do, Coda. It'll do.
By mid-morning, a dark shape trudged over the ridge, snowshoes leaving deep prints. Daniel Reeves had arrived.
Daniel stopped short, 10 paces from the dome. A snow house? You've gone mad, William. That's a frozen coffin.
William dusted snow from his mitts. Still air, Daniel. It stays trapped and keeps us warm. Better than any drafty cabin.
Daniel shook his head, eyes wide. Snow doesn't insulate, it smothers. You'll wake up dead.
William's voice was patient as falling snow. Feel it. The inside is warmer already.
Daniel refused to even touch the wall. I'll build a proper shelter. Split logs won't crumble. Come with me.
Above them, the mountain peaks began to vanish behind a creeping white curtain. The wind shifted.
Daniel turned and started gathering branches. I am not dying in your snowdrift, old man.
Daniel lashed split logs together with numb fingers, his lean-to a crooked skeleton against the darkening pines.
He builds a cage for the wind to rattle. It will rattle him to death.
Daniel pounded the last stake and called toward the Quincy. You'll be crawling out of that ice hole before midnight.
The first harsh gust answered him, slapping snow sideways and tearing at the freshly cut boughs.
William pulled the oil canvas across his entrance. Stay close, Coda. This one means business.
As Daniel crawled into his lean-to, a blast of wind shot through the pine needles and stung his eyes.
Within an hour, the blizzard swallowed the ridge, turning the two shelters into dim shapes in a white frenzy.
Inside the Quincy, William sat on his fur, listening to the storm scream but feeling no draft. Still air, Daniel. You'll learn.
Daniel huddled against the shuddering logs, his teeth already chattering. It's just wind. Wood stops wind.
William closed his eyes and let the dog's warmth settle against his leg. The test had only begun.
Night fell hard, but inside the Quincy, William slept in still air, warmed only by his own breath, and the lantern's small flame. The flame barely flickered, a steady orange pulse in the dark. No draft reached it.
Across the ridge, Daniel fought to keep his blanket from flying away. Every crack in his lean-to became a whistle of freezing air. He stuffed strips of bark into the gaps, but the wind laughed and tore them loose instantly. I am not going to him. I am not giving him the satisfaction.
Morning arrived without sunrise, only a gray lightning of the storm. William sat up, pulled a strip of pemmican, and chewed slowly.
Daniel's teeth chattered uncontrollably. His fingers had gone stiff and white, but he forced them into fists.
William crawled out and trudged toward the lean-to, snow up to his knees. Daniel, let me help you.
Daniel's voice was a croak. I said I am fine. Wood and grit, old man. It held.
William stared at the sagging roof and the snow already piling inside the open side. The lean-to wouldn't survive another night. William walked back to the Quincy, his shoulders tight. Behind him, Daniel's stubborn silence was louder than the wind.
Daniel slammed another branch against the frame. I'll reinforce it. Just need more pine boughs.
A sharp crack cut through the storm. The overloaded roof snapped the crossbeam, dumping a slab of snow onto his back.
He clawed his way free, gasping. His fingers were blue, but he couldn't feel them anymore.
Inside the Quingy, William heard the crack and closed his eyes. He's killing himself, proving he's right.
Daniel tried to strike his flint, but the wind extinguished every spark. Come on, just one fire.
The second night dragged on, colder than the first. Daniel's shivering had become a steady, violent tremor he could no longer control.
This is how we die. Not from snow, but from pride.
By the third morning, the lean-to had collapsed on one side, leaving an open wound to the storm. Daniel lay curled beneath the frozen logs, barely moving.
Daniel's lips moved without sound. He would not call for help. He would not give William the last word.
The fourth day of the blizzard brought a wind that screamed without pause, and Daniel's mind began to unspool.
He saw his cabin hearth, smelled stew. He reached for it and touched frozen wood.
William's voice was torn to shreds by the gale. Daniel heard only fragments of his own name.
Just a little longer. Wood holds heat. It has to.
He clawed at the snow, tried to rise, then collapsed into the drift.
He stared at his fingers. The tips had gone black, like burnt twigs.
William knew the next hours would decide everything. By the end of the fifth day, Daniel had stopped shivering. His breathing was shallow, his lips blue.
A final clear thought surfaced. I was wrong, and now I'll never get to say it.
William pulled the canvas aside and stepped into the blizzard. He would not let the boy die. The blizzard howled with final fury. Then a crack, the lean-to folded, burying Daniel alive.
The boy.
William heard the collapse even over the wind. He didn't hesitate. He found Daniel's arm jutting from a drift, the rest of him swallowed by snow. William dropped to his knees and dug with bare hands, ice crystals slicing his skin. He didn't feel it. He seized Daniel by the collar and pulled. The body was dead weight, but it moved across the white ridge. Wind tried to tear Daniel from his grip. William walked bent over, every step a fight. Coda appeared at his side, a silent shadow, then turned toward the Quingy's faint orange glow.
William pulled Daniel through the arch and collapsed against the snow wall. Still with me, boy.
Daniel's eyes fluttered once, then closed. His breath came in shallow, irregular gasps. He was alive, barely. William peeled the frozen clothes off Daniel's body, each layer cracking like dead bark.
Easy now, boy. You are not dying on my watch.
He wrapped him in furs, then set a tin cup of broth near the lantern to warm. Coda pressed close, a living furnace against Daniel's side, his own coat shedding ice that melted on the snow floor. For hours, Daniel swam in and out of consciousness, his breath a faint rattle that matched the flickering flame.
Warm. I am warm.
William dribbled broth between Daniel's cracked lips, a few drops at a time, as careful as feeding a new lamb. Outside, the storm screamed like a wounded animal, but inside, the still air held. The lantern burned without a shiver. Daniel's eyes opened slowly, unfocused, then sharpened on the curved frost walls, arching above him.
Where? The cold, gone? Gone?
He gestured weakly at the frozen dome. Still air, boy. Told you it stays trapped, keeps us warm.
Daniel lifted a trembling hand and pressed his palm to the snow wall. It should have burned with cold, but his skin only felt a dull chill.
William leaned closer. Remember your cabin last winter? How the wind cut through the walls like they were paper.
Daniel's voice cracked. We froze even with the stove roaring. I never understood why.
William nodded slowly. Moving air steals heat. Wood stops nothing. Snow cages the stillness.
He took Daniel's hand and pressed it against the snow, then held it near the lantern. The contrast was undeniable.
William held the lantern steady. Feel the difference. Near freezing, but the air is still. That's what trapped you in the lean-to.
This is actually warm. Warmer than any cabin I ever slept in. His voice was barely a whisper.
Daniel stared at William, the question forming before he could stop it. All his certainty had been stripped away.
He swallowed hard and managed a raw whisper. How did you know this?
William stared into the lantern for a long moment. The flames swayed, then steadied. He finally spoke. I'll tell you. But first, we stay alive 2 more days. The storm ain't done.
A thin whistle cut through the shelter. William turned, found a hairline crack near the entrance, and pressed a finger against it.
He scooped snow and packed it into the seam. See? 1 leak is all the wind needs. Closed is everything.
Daniel watched the simple motion, still too weak to help. I would have died watching that crack.
The whistle stopped. The Quingy fell silent again, as if holding its breath.
William sat back. The storm will test us again tonight. Rest now. Tomorrow, I'll show you more.
Daniel wanted to argue, but his body surrendered. He closed his eyes, the strange warmth pressing against his skin like a promise.
William watched the boy drift off, then whispered to the dark, "You'll know soon enough, and you'll never look at winter the same."
Outside, the blizzard screamed on, but inside the sealed dome, the 2 men and the dog lay locked in a pocket of still air. By the 8th morning, the storm's roar had softened to a low moan. Weak daylight filtered through the canvas, and the air inside smelled of wet wool and dog.
"Eat slow. We'll make it."
He passed a strip of pemmican, his own portion halved, and watched Daniel chew. Daniel's eyes tracked every motion. How William tested the snow wall's hardness with a thumb, the care with which he sealed a stray gap with wet snow.
You promised to tell me where you learned this.
I didn't read it in any book. I watched a fox den survive the winter.
A fox den?
William's voice dropped, as if the memory demanded stillness.
Last winter, I tracked a vixen for days. Her den never froze, never collapsed. I dug into the drift and felt the trapped warmth like this.
Daniel's exhaustion melted into something else. A hunger to understand what nature had taught a quiet man who listened when others didn't.
I was tracking a silver fox across the high basin. Trees were snapping like twigs in the wind, but I found her den untouched.
In his mind, he was back there, the snowbank alive with the small hollow, the vixen's amber eyes watching him from the dark. The wind screamed for 3 weeks, but that den never collapsed. She dug into a drift, let it harden, and hollowed it out.
I put my arm inside. The air was still and almost warm. She'd figured out what men forgot, that snow is a blanket, not a killer.
Daniel's cracked lips parted. From a fox. You learned to build this from a fox.
I followed her tracks for weeks. She taught me more about staying alive than any trapper ever did. Nature beats books, boy.
The image was still forming in Daniel's mind. A single line of fox tracks leading to a dark hole that had outlasted frozen forests. He saw her now, the vixen shaking snow from her muzzle, stepping into the teeth of a blizzard, with her kits safe in the drift.
That next spring, I built my first Quingy. Took all night, but by morning, I knew it would work, and now you do too.
Daniel looked at the snow walls with new eyes, not as a desperate man's gamble, but as a wisdom carried by a quiet man from a silent teacher. The 9th morning broke clear and still. William pushed aside the canvas and squinted into a world erased by snow.
Daniel turned to him, his voice raw. Teach me. I never want to be caught helpless again.
William smiled and handed him a stick. Then, we'll build. First, pack the snow. It has to hold firm, not crumble.
Daniel plunged the stick into a nearby drift. The snow was wet and heavy. Perfect. He began to pile it high. After an hour, William pressed his thumb into the mound. Now hollow it out. Slow and even. Don't rush the snow. Daniel dug into the pile, scoop after scoop, the snow curling like wood shavings beneath his wooden blade. By midday, the hollow was deep enough to crouch in. William passed a lantern inside to test for drafts.
Seal every seam. 1 leak and the cold wins. Remember the crack.
When Daniel finally crawled out, his own small dome stood solid, a white bell sealed tight against the sky.
William placed a hand on his shoulder. Now you know. Carry this and you'll never be helpless in winter again.
The sun climbed higher. Drops began falling from the Quinjee's arch, snow returning to water. They packed little. A lantern, pemmican, a fur. Coda trotted ahead, nose to the trail.
Daniel looked back. Why didn't you force me into the Quinjee that first night? I almost died.
Some things you have to feel to believe. If I'd forced you, you'd never have trusted the snow. Knowledge forced is knowledge lost. You had to find the truth yourself. You nearly froze. But now you'll carry this. And you'll teach it without my hand.
I was a fool, but I won't be again.
Behind them, the Quinjees softened under the sun. 2 tracks led away. A man and a boy who had become a man. William touched Coda's head. He said nothing more. The silence was full. Over the ridge, the future waited. But the past was sealed in that brief white dome. Winter came again. Daniel traveled alone through the downriver trail, his pack heavy and his stride sure. He crossed a frozen river bend, the ice groaning under its own weight. Overhead, the sky thickened into a gray wall. A fast storm was descending. Through the rising snow, 3 figures appeared, a woman and 2 children, slumped against a half-frozen pine.
He lunged forward. Hold on, I am here.
The boy was trembling, his lips blue. The girl clutched her mother's skirt.
This is no different than before, but now I am the one with the knowledge. He knelt beside the woman. There's no time. We need to dig.
The woman stared. Dig? Into the snow? We'll freeze faster.
Daniel grabbed a broken branch. A snow shelter saved my life. Now move. Pile the snow here, and pile it fast. He shaped the pile with quick hands. The snow has to bind. Pack it tight, like you are building a wall.
Miriam pushed snow with stiff arms. This won't work. It can't.
Daniel kept moving. I said the same thing once. I was wrong. Now pack. He remembered William's hands, the care when he sealed the seam. Closed is everything.
He hollowed the dome from the inside, the walls curving smooth by instinct now. The children crawled in to help. The wind screamed louder, whipping snow into stinging needles.
Daniel pulled Miriam by the coat. Inside, all of you, now.
They tumbled into the shelter, a tangle of limbs and cold as the first blast slammed the dome.
He sealed the entrance with a leather satchel. Still air will hold. Trust it.
Outside, the blizzard screamed like a living thing. Inside, there was only heavy breathing and the quiet of trapped air. The mother reached out and touched the frozen dome, then pressed a hand to her children's cheeks. Disbelief broke into silent, grateful tears.
You were right. I am sorry I doubted you. I thought we would die.
Still air. You can't see it, but it's there, trapping our warmth.
He ran his hands over the dome, packing every invisible crack the way William had taught him. The lantern flame burned steady and sure.
I am warm, Mama. Really warm.
The night deepened. The storm's fury was a muffled hammer far away. Daniel leaned against the wall, listening to every small, safe breath. By dawn, a blade of light cut through the entrance. Daniel pushed aside the satchel and crawled out into a silent world. The drifts were sculpted smooth. The trees glittered with ice. The sky was a hard, clean blue.
The little girl, Ruth, clapped her hands. It's like a fairy tale.
Daniel looked at the dome, then at the family. The snow house had outlasted the blizzard. William's lesson had just saved a family. They trudged toward the trading post, Daniel carrying Eli. Miriam and Ruth followed, their breath clouding.
An old trapper named William taught me. He learned from a fox den that never froze.
A fox den? That's a story worth keeping. I'll teach our village.
He explained how still air trapped warmth. She listened, her eyes bright with understanding. At the outpost, she took his hands. Thank you. I promise to pass this on. Daniel looked back at the Quinjee, already shrinking under the spring sun. Water droplets sparkled on the snow, and their footprints led away like a trail of stories. He watched Miriam walk away with her children, the snow dome a white memory behind them.
William was right. Snow is not death. It's a blanket waiting to be shaped.
The sun climbed higher. The dome would melt, but the lesson would outlast every wooden cabin. Months later, spring found the ridge. The Quingy had softened into a ghost of itself. Water dripped from the arch in slow, steady beads. The winter's silence replaced by a low, liquid song. A lone figure stood on the ridge, William, his dog at his side. He looked down at the melting dome. The dome's round shadow was still etched into the earth, a dark circle where the shelter had been. He placed a hand against the damp ground, remembering the trapped warmth and the boy who almost died. The tracks they had made that morning were now pools of meltwater. The mountain was reclaiming them, but not the lesson. Not the lesson. The Quincy dissolved back into the earth. Wooden cabins could burn, rot, or be lost, but a trick learned from a fox, carried by memory, would outlast them all. The wind whispered through the pines. The tracks faded. The snow returned to the sky. The story found its way onto paper. Daniel drew the Quingy in the trading post ledger. How to pack, how to hollow, how to seal. No one knew the author's name, but the drawing was enough. In the foothills, a child scooped snow into a mound, her mother whispering, "Still air holds the warmth." The snow dome melted, but the drawing remained. On pages, on cabin walls, in whispered directions, they said sleeping inside packed snow would kill a man. But William Cross outlasted the cold, and his Quingy outlasted every wooden cabin. A trapper in the next valley heard the story and smiled. When the next storm came, he did not reach for wood. He reached for snow, and in the stillness, the fox's secret carried on. Spring green overtook the ridge where the Quingy had been. A circle of thick, lush grass marked the spot. 2 robins hopped through the ring, pecking at the softened earth. They had no memory of the snow that once held a man's life, or the fox's secret. A light breeze stirred the pines, carrying the scent of new growth. In the distance, the mountain peaks still carried their white crowns, but the lower slopes were green again. The tracks that led away were long gone, buried under wildflowers. But somewhere, a trapper touched a snow wall and felt the trapped warmth, and a mother whispered to her child, "Still air. Remember, some shelters aren't built to last forever, only long enough to carry you home." The wind sighed and the grass circle swayed, a quiet monument to a man who listened. The lush grass circle shimmered under the spring sun, a green scar where the Quingy had once cradled life. 2 robins hopped across the circle, pecking at the softened earth, then took flight, their wings brushing the deep quiet. The mountain, with its slow patience, erased every trace of the shelter that defied the storm. But the wind, passing through the pines, remembered everything. The bitter cold, the orange lantern, the still air that saved a man. It whispered through the green needles the lesson the fox had taught, a secret older than any trapper's craft. And then the wind, too, grew still, as if bowing to the quiet that follows hard-won wisdom. The image began to darken at the edges, the green circle shrinking to a distant point of light. It faded like a dream upon waking, soft as the snow that had built the dome. Only the sound of wind remained, distant, and then even that, silence.